is Attorney Respishow, and this is the Respishow. It's Friday, May 21, 2021. Have a good Friday night, Butch. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. And yes, I'm fine. No? It's Friday again.
Right.
TGIF.
Thank God.
It's Friday. Pero dito po sa atin, pati na rin kay Attorney Harold dito, palagay ko, walang Friday, walang weekend di ba? Tuloy-tuloy yata ang trabaho mo. If you're a lawyer, I don't think there is such a thing as a weekend.
There is, Butch, but let me tell you, you make my weekends because of this show. And let me tell you, business is picking up. Business is picking up, but not yet back. I may still have to ask my landlord for a discount for this month. All right? We have the best show for you tonight, the best episode, because we will be talking about marriage.
Marriage, yeah.
Right. The news is the Supreme Court, I think last week, 2 weeks ago, issued a decision. Hindi na daw kailangan ng psychologist every time na magpapa-anal ka. Is that good news or bad news, Butch?
Well, tingnan natin, no? Usurin natin mabuti. From me, I'm not a lawyer, but explain natin yung proseso dati, yung dati, no? Pag mayroong lalaki o babae na mag-asawa, magpa-file ng annulment, no? Sa husgado, no? Tapos yung kabila, yung isang spouse will be asked to reply, no? Either to because ang basis na ilalabas dito sa pag-file ng annulment ay ano ang tawag dito, ano yung
Psychological incapacity.
Psychological incapacity. Whatever that term means, no? It means psychological incapacity. Hindi na kami pwede, hindi ko na kayang magsama dito. Tapos tatanong na naman, siyempre, pag dinala mo yung petition dito sa husgado, yung kabilang party, babae o lalaki, kailangan sumagot. Nasasabihin niya, siguro, pwede na sabihin, hindi totoo yan, no? Hindi kami psychologically incapacitated. Or, sasabihin nga, totoo yan. Pero ang reason, dahil siya ang may kasalanan at hindi ako. Ganyan.
Right.
Ganyan ang direksyon, di ba?
Fundamentally, Butch, you are right. But this is how it is done these days. Before this ruling by the Supreme Court, one of the spouses comes to a lawyer and the spouse says, I want to get annulled. The lawyer basically asks a few questions. Were you underage when you got married? Were you brothers or sisters or close relatives? And all the questions that may indicate the validity or voidness of the marriage. But in the end, more likely than not, the cause would be psychological incapacity.
You see.
What?
Yung mga pinwersa sa marriage, pwede yan, ano?
Pwede.
Valid reason yun.
Basta vitiated yung consent. Pero, shotgun marriage, vitiated ba yun? Hindi.
Hindi ba?
Hinarap sa'yo yung shotgun, hindi ka binaril, pero may chance ka pang tumakbo habang naglalakad ka pa muna ng altar.
Ganyan ba yan?
Yeah. Pero hindi ka tinutukan ng baril nung tinanong ka ng oo at hindi. Yun ang mahalaga. Dun sa consent.
Wow, ganyan ba?
May chance ka pang tumakbo.
Tandaan niyo po ito. Kaya yung sinasabi natin, shotgun marriage is not reason for annulment per se.
Right.
Kinakailangan binaril ka o kaya ano yung pabasa yun?
Binaril ka. Well, habang nasa altar ka, tinutukan ka ng baril.
Tinutukan ka ng baril.
Na-force ka talaga, na-intimidate ka, wala ka ng choice kundi magsabi ng oo. Meron pang isang funny case that resulted in the annulment of the marriage. Kapag out of jest, naglalaro kayo, so nagiinuman kayo. Siguro nagpunta kayo Las Vegas. Di ba? Pilipino ka, nagpunta ka Las Vegas, nakipagkasal ka, valid pa rin yun kahit sa ibang bansa ka ikinasal. Alright? Pero pwede mong sabihin siguro, nagpunta kami sa Caesar's Palace, kumain kami, nagkaroon kami ng, anong tawag doon? Hangover night. Kung marami kayong ininom na gamot and then uminom kayo, hindi nyo alam kung anong ginagawa ninyo, pumunta kayo sa isa sa mga marriage hotels doon and kinasal kayo, suddenly you wake up in the morning, kasal ka na
Kasal
pala.
ka na.
You can say siguro dito sa court sa Philippines, wait, that was done in jest, hindi kami sincere nung ginawa namin yan, therefore please annul our marriage.
Okay.
Alright. Isa pa, Butch, before we go sa psychological incapacity, note na yung psychological incapacity is just one of the grounds to annul your marriage.
Mm-mm.
One of the other grounds is the invalidity of the marriage license. I think ito yung next na most popular na ground ng annulment. Ng declaration ng void ng marriage.
What makes a marriage document invalid?
Alright, marriage license, technically.
License.
Before you get married, you should apply sa local civil registrar kung saan kayo kakasal or kung saan ka nakatira ng marriage license. It's a formal document. However you got hold of that marriage license, it's a marriage license. Alright? Kapag nasa ibang bansa ka, pupunta ka sa consulate office, mag-apply ka ng marriage license para maikasal ka sa ibang bansa. Paano yan kung kinasal ka ng pare, kinasal ka ng husgado na wala kang marriage license?
Oo nga.
Invalid yung marriage mo. Anong kailangan mo para mapatunayan na wala kang marriage license? Punta ka sa local civil registrar or punta ka sa Philippine Consulate, hingi ka ng certification na wala sa record nila na may marriage license ka. Isa-certify nila after best efforts, wala kaming makitang marriage license dito. I-bring mo yan sa court. Pagdating sa court, voided ang marriage mo. I think ito yung ground na inavail ni Chris Aquino, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, para ma-invalidate yung marriage niya.
Oh. That's food for thought.
Yeah.
Kasi ang dalas, ang dami, pumupunta na lang mismo sa simbahan, areglo doon, tapos mayroong mga pinabirmahan silang parang marriage contract, di ba?
Right.
Ganyan.
Right.
Pero at that point, hindi pa sila nagpaparehistro. Hindi pa
Definitely.
sila pumunta sa registrar of kung ano man yung register doon. No?
You're right. And they always mistake marriage license with the marriage certificate. But attorney, I have marriage certificate at the PSA.
Yeah.
That's not the marriage license. The only way you can determine whether you had a marriage license or not is to go sa local civil register.
Tandaan nyo yan. Ako, very important info yan.
Right, it's
for
easier that way. Trust me. You know, another easy way to get out.
Tinuturuan no. Lokali.
Parang ako yung merchant of anti-marriage. Well, isa pa is failure to consummate marriage.
Kung hindi kayo nagtalik.
Yan. More specifically, kapag hindi pumasok. Kahit nagtalik kayo, kahit nagkadikitan, pero hindi pumasok, yan. Failure to consummate marriage, ground for annulment.
But that's hard to prove na hindi pumasok, di ba?
Precisely. It's hard to prove, but then again, we are in a civil court. You don't have to prove a lot. You only have to prove that you only have to present more evidence than the state. That means the prosecutor.
Natatawa ako pa. Pasensya na po. Dahil nung pagsabi niyang hindi pumasok, sasabihin ng lalaki hindi pumasok. Sabihin ng babae hindi pumasok. Nagkakanda. That would be a real funny situation, or a situation where sasabihin ng lalaki, pumasok na, sasabihin ng babae, hindi pa.
But your honor, pumasok na Hindi ng babae.
Pasensya na kayo. Pero we're talking about this and it's interesting. It's interesting. Ito mga napakagaling ng abogado natin kasama dito.
Paano kung sa ibang butas pumasok?
Isa pa yan.
Thesis topic for law students, third year law students. That's a thesis topic. Alright? Alright, ayoko na i-pursue yung subject.
Hindi na.
Anyway, let's go sa psychological incapacity.
Okay.
When clients come to me and there is no other ground to get the marriage annulled than Article 36 psychological incapacity, I always tell them, there must be a psychological malady, personality disorder, mental disorder that can be diagnosed by a psychiatrist, clinical psychologist, That is the only way for you to get annulment. But it is not automatic. Go to your psychologist now, get yourself interviewed, get your husband or your wife interviewed, get the report from that psychologist. Let's file that with the court. Let's present that with the court and testify in the court in the future, you, your husband, and the psychologist. And the psychologist must be able to show that that is a psychological malady within the books. It must be permanent, incurable, and grave. There must be oh my God, I'm becoming so technical.
Yeah, but
my only point is, it must be in the books. It must be in the books. What are these psychological incapacities? Depression, bipolar 2, narcissism, inferiority complex, superiority, etc. It must be in the books. The psychologist must be able to prove that at the time of marriage, this malady already existed.
Pero regardless of severity,
it must be severe.
It always must be severe.
Yep. But that's subjective. That's subjective.
Kanya nga, sabi ko, how do you prove severity, no? Percentage, 70%, 100%, 10%, no?
No, just the word grave. In the psychologist's report, and the assumption is always, if it's in the books, it's grave. All right? Therefore, going back, at the beginning of marriage, there must be proof that the malady already existed. That means you must present proof on the development of the malady from childhood, such that it manifested after the marriage. And lastly, the malady must have affected the capability of the spouse to render the duties of a spouse as a spouse and as a parent. So if you satisfy these elements, unable to render marital parental duties, psychological malady, and existing at the time of marriage, there you go. You have an annulment coming through.
You mentioned responsibilities as a spouse and responsibility as a parent.
Right.
Okay. Kung apektado yan, no, hindi mo na ang ibig sabihin ng responsibility as a spouse, what does that mean?
Merong specific provision sa family code na nagsasabi, spouses are obliged to live together and to love each other. And of course, implied na to support each other. So, live together and love each other. Mutual love, respect, support.
Pero, marital intercourse is not mentioned.
It may be implied in love.
Ganyan ba?
The wife may say, I don't feel love because we don't have...
No, but I thought it needs to be consummated.
That's the other thing. We're talking about psychological incapacity here. The consummation is quite another ground for annulment of marriage.
I see. Yeah. That's another one naman.
That's another one. We're past that because that's simple.
So that's okay, dun yung question ko, no?
Yeah.
So, pero it doesn't fall under psychological incapacity.
No.
No. Although it could be the reason why it cannot be consummated.
Yeah, maybe. As a matter of fact, one of our clients right now, she went to the psychologist and we learned that the malady was impotence.
Impotence?
Yeah. And I asked her, did it come inside? What do you mean come? No, I mean entry. Traveling, entry, knocking and coming inside.
Hindi kaya.
If she said no, then we have 2 grounds for annulment. Again, my dear viewers, we're just talking about the most popular ground for annulment here. Annulment by psychological incapacity. Because the other grounds are quite objective. Yes or no lang naman eh. Kung nakapasok o hindi, magkamag-anak o hindi, underage. Pero ito, medyo merong room for application.
Tama. Wag muna natin bitiwan yung subject na. Kasi it might be funny, but it's important eh. Kung ang isang lalaki ay anong tawag ng baog o anong tawag ng impotent, no? Yeah. Kung sasabihin po, hindi siya nagkakaroon ng erection. Right. So, nag-asawa siya. At nag-complain yung asawa niya. Pumunta at gusto niya magpa-anal dahil yung asawa niya impotent.
Right.
Ang gusto mong sabihin, yung paratang ng babae, yung lalaki is not getting an erection.
Right.
No? Now, what we're saying here is that is ground for annulment.
No, the
No.
insertion, the non-insertion.
The non-insertion,
Right.
not the impotence, but the non-insertion is ground. May ano po yan, may very fine distinction. No? Tapos isa pa, kung yung lalaki, bago nag-asawa sila, sinabihan na yung babae no, na impotent siya. No? At nagpakasal pa rin yung babae sa kanya. What happens then?
Valid question, Butch. Valid question. Merong instances sa family code na merong mga grounds for annulment sa family code na kapag sinabi na sa'yo in the beginning, hindi mo na pwedeng bawiin in the end, pero hindi ito kasama.
Hindi kasama.
Hindi ito
yan.
kasama. Kapag kahit sinabi niya na wala ako, nagpa-transplant ako, wala akong instrument, kahit may digital instrument siya.
Wala.
Pero nagpakasal kayo tapos wala pa rin. Wala.
Meron kasi ako naalala dito sa isang sama namin dati sa opisina. Nag-asawa sila. Tapos, nung nag-asawa sila, doon niya lang na-realize after a few months na yung asawa niya was a drug addict. Because the husband would work up to, would work early morning and sleep during the day, no?
Right.
Up to the afternoon. Naalala niya, ang sinasabi dahil ganyan daw yung kanilang trabaho. Kasi sa kabilang bansa, ganyan yung oras. So, ang ano niya, dahil dito, nagdodroga yung lalaki para gising. Alright? Pero alam niya na yun ang trabaho niya buhat noon pa. Ang hindi niya alam, gumagamit ng droga.
Right.
Nung nag-asawa na sila, siguro naging mas grabe yung droga. So, nag-file ngayon siya ng annulment. At nabigyan sila ng annulment.
Oh.
Huh?
Alright.
I was just wondering what your comment might be on that.
Maybe under the premise of psychological incapacity. But being addict per se, I don't think that's a ground.
Ah.
Right.
Even if you're an addict before the marriage and you did not tell your spouse?
Oh my gosh, Butch, that's a hard question. I may not be able to answer, but there, as I told you, there are instances in the family code na parang papasok siya sa fraud eh. Fraud. Merong article doon na grounds for annulment, fraud. Tapos merong isang article ulit na what are fraud. But I don't think kasama yung drugs. Drug addiction, I don't think.
So that means what basically the person has to fully disclose, no? What condition his life is in and his physical situation is.
That's advisable. That's advisable. Kakantsawan na naman ako ni Attorney Nash. Catch up daw ako sa Constico this time. So family law. Hey, mamaya sa comment, Attorney Nash, if you are watching, can you please post yung article about fraud and then merong article na nagbibigay. At least I know na may ganong article, di ko lang memorize kasi meron ako sa enumeration. Alright.
Pasensya ka na sa mga tanong ko.
I appreciate.
Palagay ko yung mga tanong ko naman, mga tanong ng mga nanonood sa atin eh.
Precisely.
And then, okay, let's go on from
Okay,
there.
let's go on. But that's the past. That's the past. Sabi ng Supreme Court, hindi na natin kailangan ng psychological incapacity. Pabayaan mo na si Judge sumagot kung may topak ba siya sa ulo, kung may topak siya sa ulo nung kinasal siya, at wala siyang kwentang asawa at ama. Iwan mo yan, question na yan sa Judge. Anong implication nito ngayon sa mga gustong magpaanak? I think mas mapapadali. Mas mapapamura sila ng 60,000 pesos kasi medyo mahal ang psychological exam and then may per diem pa yung psychologist kapag mag-witness siya. Mas mapapadali. Mas mapapadali dahil konti na lang ang issues. I think testimony na lang ng husband and wife ang kailangan or their close friends or close relatives. Mas mapapadali.
Pero mo mapapadali nga, expedient nga. But kanya nga, yung problema lang dyan, ang naalala ko, meron akong nabasa na sa mga annulment cases, sa pagpahihiwalay, no, palaging merong mga biktima nitong paghihiwalay ng mga mag-asawa. Ang mga biktima po, ang sinasabi nila, siyempre yung mga anak, no? Dahil mabibiyak yung kanilang pamilya, magkakagulo, magkakaroon ng psychological problems yung mga bata. Kung minsan, ganyan po nangyayari. At sila, kung mga bata, wala silang kakayanan magbigay ng kanilang opinion sa korte na sasabihin, ayaw namin ito, ganito, walang ganyan. Hindi naman sila pwedeng mag-witness, no? Unless may physical siguro ginugulpi yung nanay nila at wala silang magawa. Siguro yung mga ganyan. Pero yung korte or since wala silang representation at silang pwedeng maging biktima dito, ang state, the government daw, is mandated to be the protector of these possible victims. Ang method of protecting them is to get their parents to go see a psychologist, whether it is true that they are both psychologically incapacitated and therefore cannot go on with the marriage, and therefore if the marriage continues, it will be detrimental to the children. No? Right. If the marriage continues, pag pinilit mo magkasama pa rin yung mag-asawa, mas problemado pa yung mga bata. Mas mabuti pang ihiwalay na. Yun po ang isa sa mga ang alam kong value ng psychologist, yung mga mahusay na psychologist. Hindi ko po nalalaman kung bakit sasabihin ito ng Korte Suprema if dahil ang gusto sabihin, nakakalimutan yata ng Korte Suprema na ang role ng gobyerno ay protektahan itong magiging mga biktima ng paghiwalay.
Alright. That's a correct point, Butch. Because if you read the special proceedings and the family code, the overarching objective is the best interest of the child. So sa lahat ng decision ng korte involving family, involving the child, is the best interest of the child. But here, I think this is a more specific provision than the overall objective of the law. The specific provision is if there is psychological incapacity existing at the time of marriage, cannot render the obligations of a parent or a spouse, therefore annulment. There is no mention about the child. So in practice, you read the psychologist's report, there's no mention about the child. You participate in the proceedings, you can't hear the children. You read the decisions of the judge. You don't read about about the interest of the child. Sometimes, many times. But I don't think, and in practice, the best interest of the child figures in the prosecution for annulment.
So what is the reason for the family code?
To regulate the relations of the family. So it regulates marriage, the relationship between spouses, the relationship between children's spouses, and all the relatives.
Wala na yung best interest of the child.
You can still read the phrase best interest of the child when it comes to custody cases, adoption cases, guardianship cases. These proceedings directly affect the child.
Very interesting. So, it becomes now more expedient for the couple who want to decide to have an annulment because they do not have to go through the process of being examined by a psychologist.
Yeah.
And only the judge will be the acting psychologist.
Yeah, judges are good at that. At reading the lawyers. And you will be cross-examined as well by the prosecutor representing the state. Remember, this is not a criminal case, but the state has an interest in marriage as a policy. Therefore, ang kalaban parate ng husband and wife, aside from each other, is the prosecutor. The state, the solicitor general.
Ang gusto sabihin, yung solicitor general o yung prosecutor, nasa kanyang i-prove na may collusion.
Yun, precisely, Butch. Got it. Yep, collusion. Because sometimes, you know what, more often than not, spouses want to get their marriage annulled mutually.
Right.
They're not fighting. I just want to separate. I don't like you anymore. Me too. The feeling is mutual. But that's collusion. The state doesn't want that. You can't just stipulate marriage kasi. The state protects families. So you can't stimulate. Stimulate? Ano ba? Nag-uusap kasi tayo para nag-potency. Oh my gosh. You can't stipulate marriage and family.
Very interesting. So, do you think this is going to be popular or...
Already, Butch, annulment is already popular in the Philippines and even abroad kasi sila yung may funds para mag-process ng annulment. And a little public service, Butch, if I may digress, karamihan ng nagpapa-annul ay based sa abroad kasi kayo yung may funds. But the problem is, may trabaho kayo dahil hindi kayo makauwi dito sa Philippines para mag-attend ng hearing. Part yan ng due process na mag-attend kayo ng hearing. And definitely, dapat mag-arrange kayo na makauwi kayo dito sa Pilipinas para mag-attend ng hearing. But, marami sa internet na makikita kayo na nag-a-advertise for a certain amount of money, usually 300,000 pesos at 100,000 pesos down payment. Annulment, ang bilis, 3 to 4 months, walang appearance. Basta mag-down ka ng 100,000 pesos. Countless na ang na-meet ko ng mga clients na na-scam ng ganitong arrangement. Kasi ang easy Maraming need, mataas ang demand, therefore, tinitake advantage nila yung need ng mga OFWs. Walang meeting, siguro meeting sa Zoom, but hindi natutuloy. Walang such a thing na no appearance annulment.
So, nai-scam lang sila doon?
Nai-scam lang sila. No such a, sabi nila na babayaran yung prosecutor, babayaran yung judge, babayaran yung ganyan.
Wala.
Not true.
Now, parang parang at par na ngayon yung process of legal separation tsaka annulment.
Yes, process. That is right. The process may be more or less similar, but the required proof may be harder to produce in the annulment case because you're asking for something graver, the separation of the family. So therefore, more evidence is expected from you. Meaning, medyo matopang yung isa sa mag-asawa, nangyari na simula nung bata. Whereas sa legal separation, Butch, iba yung mga grounds for legal separation.
Tsaka iba siya sa mutual yun di ba? Yung legal separation.
No. You may get that impression. You might have gotten that impression kasi parating compare yung legal separation sa divorce. And divorce is mutual. But legal separation is not. Ang similarity ng divorce at saka legal separation is yung separation ng property and abode. Less lang yung marriage, the destruction of marriage. Pero yung grounds ng legal separation is different. So, dapat may infidelity, dapat alcoholic siya o drug addict siya, or ginagawa kayong prostitute ng parents ninyo, or binubugbog kayo. Yun. Usually kapag nag-aaway kayong mag-asawa, pwede na kayong mag-legal separation. Malamang yung reason, pare-pareho lang naman yung reason ng awayan ng mag-asawa And malamang malalaglag siya sa legal separation. And legal separation results in separation of properties. Remember, community property, lahat ng property mo, bago kayo kinasal, and then lahat ng property nyo during kasal, magkasama yan. So, pwede mong paghiwalayan sa legal separation. Maghiwalay na, and then pwede na rin kayong maghiwalay ng bahay. Ang difference ng legal separation sa annulment, legal separation, considered kasal ka pa rin. Sa annulment, hindi ka nakasal.
Yeah. Iba yun,
Right.
Ang annulment means null and void from the very beginning.
Right, that's right.
No?
That's right.
Although that's very hard to understand that it was null and void from the very beginning, but That's what it means. Yung legal separation means the marriage is legal, no? And that you are separating legally also.
Right. But I may be wrong when I said that null and void from the beginning. Distinguish between annulment and declaration of nullity. Ibig sabihin ng declaration of nullity, from the very beginning, there was no marriage. The
Right.
marriage was null and void.
Right.
Marriage.
Ab initio.
Marriage extinguished under Article 36 psychological incapacity is marriage that was null and void in the beginning. So technically, it isn't annulment, but annulment is easier to say than nullification of marriage. Parati kang kinokorek ng professor sa law school. Annulment, it's nullification of marriage actually, or declaration of nullity of void marriage. But it's a mouthful. It's hard. But annulment is easier. Annulment maybe valid in the beginning, but just annulled because of a vice in consent.
I see.
Yeah, like shotgun wedding, shotgun during consent.
So yun ang fine difference ng annulment as a term and declaration of nullity.
Right.
Okay. That's very good. I'm learning a mouthful here now. Kayong mga interesado na magpapayo, hindi para sa inyong sarili, wag na kayong maghiwalay. Pero para sa mga magpapayo kayo sa anak ninyo o sa mga apo ninyo, no? At least you will be understanding what the process is.
Right. Sa lahat sa inyo ngayon na may question pa, I know marami sa inyong nangangati magtanong. Mag-chat kayo sa Facebook page namin and we will try our best to answer them. All right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, but shall we move on to another topic?
Sige. Okay.
You know,
Next page.
Next page. All right. Yeah. It's just funny that we spoke about anything that doesn't move or doesn't,
Yeah.
All right. You know, my friend in the law firm, I have a friend in the law firm, and I can say he's a bad influence because he influenced me to download an online cockfighting and fund my account with 1,000 pesos. And he told me, attorney, just taya ka lang 200 yan, 400 para malaman mo kung paano maglaro. So, tumaya ako ng 2 beses sa Yamado. Talo sa meron. So, talo ako ng 400. Meron pa ako 600 sa account ko. Hindi ko alam kung paano ko i-withdraw galing sa kanya. This brings me to the topic of gambling here in the Philippines. Or more particularly, online gambling. Besides this online cockfighting, you hear offshore gambling, like Pogo. You hear that always. And how do they come into existence? Suddenly, 2015, 2016, all the Chinese came here. They rented all the available spaces. They put up buildings to house their call centers, to hire dealers, casino dealers, and to provide IT support for an online gambling business. But you don't see the online gambling business. Apparently, this is how it works. In the other countries, particularly China, because China is the biggest consumer of gambling. No, one of my idols, Charlie Munger, said the Chinese are industrious, but they can't just shake off the vice of gambling because they like gambling. In China, it is illegal to run a gambling scheme or business. So, those who are interested
sa China, walang mga casinos.
Except Macau.
Except Macau. Macau is tama, no?
Sa China hindi. Sa strict China wala. Pero yung mga enterprising sa online casino, since pwede mo nang i-transfer online ang business ng casino, maraming pera doon and gusto nilang mag-business ng online casino. Ang problem is, illegal sa China, and then kapag mag-o-offer ka ng business mo online, mahirap kang paniwalaan ng mga tao kahit illegal na yung ginagawa mo kapag wala kang lisensya. For example, Chinese ka, may nagsabi sa'yo, okay, download mo tong online game na to, online casino app na to, maglaro ka. Hindi ko siya pagkakatiwalaan kasi hindi siya na-accredit ng kahit na anong licensing body. Malay mo, pagka-deposit ko, babay na. Maraming ganyan, di ba? Malay mo, kada laro ko, dinadaya pala ako ng software. So, gusto nilang ma-license ng isang body para i-make sure na legitimate tong company na to at yung software na ginagamit nila ay hindi ka dinadaya. Kaya,
gusto sabihin, kasi yung mga kliyente nila, no, na aakitin nila para sumali dito sa online gambling, kailangan yung mga yun, maninigurado na legitimate ka no?
right?
So, kailangan mapapakita mo na lisensyado ka.
Right.
Kung ano man yung nagbigay sa ng lisensya, hindi na maitatanong ng mga yan. Pero kailangan makikita nila, oh, I am licensed.
Yeah.
I am certified to operate as a online gambling operation. Di ba?
Alright. Yeah.
Yun ang importante. That's why that's necessary.
Alright. So these businessmen looked around Asia and they found one jurisdiction from which they can get a gambling license. And that country is Miss Philippines! At that time, maybe 2015, 2016, the only body that licensed offline offshore gambling is the CEZA body, Cagayan Economic Zone Authority in Santa Ana, Cagayan. That's near my province, Isabela. And
Doon yung kay JPE. Di ba?
JPE. And who's JPE?
Enrile.
Oh, Enrile. All right. Yeah, Ilocano
Juan
yun.
Ponce
Si
Enrile.
Right.
And at that time, he was Senate President.
Right. Yeah.
He was Senate President.
And the law setting up the CEZA was sponsored by him or authored by him.
Okay.
All right. So you can get a license from CEZA. You type on the internet, where can I get offshore gambling license? And CEZA will come up. And so my client read about that, and the client called me. All right, Harold, help me get a license. From where? CEZA. All right, I haven't heard of that. All right, let me research. And I called the CEZA office. Hello, CEZA office. I have a client who wants to get a license for offshore gambling. And they said, no, I can speak with you. I can speak with you. We only have a number of lawyers who can transact with us. And they gave me a list. There were only 8 lawyers. There were only 8 lawyers. And
Parang accredited lawyer. Hindi mo alam bakit.
It baffled me at the time because how can a government entity limit the trade, the legal practice? How can they, where did they get the authority to accredit in the first place?
Right.
And curtail legal trade? But maybe that's how it was. So I got in touch with one of the law firms here in Quezon City. So I accompanied the client there. And the lawyer explained to me, all right, we are only 8 who are authorized to give that license. And explained to us, set up an offshore company in the BVI, that's British Virgin Islands. So,
Virgin Islands.
Yeah, yung mga maraming pera. Alam nyo to, if you want to stash your money somewhere na hindi masyadong regulated, na tax-free, you go sa Caribbean Islands. British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, yung mga yon. And then mag-set up ka lang ng company doon, walang business doon sa island na yon, sa jurisdiction na yon, sa country na yon. Pero babalik ka sa Philippines, sabi mo sa Philippines, hello Philippines, I have a company here. Okay lang naman. Ganun naman talaga ang hindi lang natin masyadong naririnig, pero ganun talaga magtago ng pera. Natulas ako doon Ganun talaga yung process pag mag-set up ka ng funds involving a lot of money. So, yun
So magtatayo ka sa, let's say, sa Caribbean, Virgin Islands.
Right.
Then you call the Philippines and say, I have a company in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
I would like to set up a
branch office
in the Philippines.
Right. Branch office is one of the organizational structure you can set up in the Philippines provided by the laws, SEC. One of them is branch, the other is regional office, etc., etc. But branch was the most appropriate. So you can set up a branch here, but you must office that branch in CEZA in Cagayan, Santa Ana, Cagayan. You try going to Santa Ana, Cagayan. Dulo yon ng Philippines. Mas mataas pa yon sa Apari. Have you heard the mula pari hanggang ulo? It's actually Santa Ana. Nascap tayo ng Itbulaga. It's Santa Ana at the very top ng Luzon, at least hindi na touch sa Luzon. Santa Ana sa taas. Try mo pumunta doon, tinatout yon as tourist spot. Well, naniwala ako sa advertisement, pumunta ako doon sa Santa Ana.
Pumunta ka doon?
Yeah, sa Cagayan. And, alright, papasok ka ng Santa Ana, Cagayan, makikita mo doon parang walang tao na economic zone kasi alalaki ng mga bulldozer, etc. Pero pagpunta ka doon, pupunta ka sa central na bayan and then may mga hotels. Pag check-in mo nga sa hotel, wala ka kung Filipinong kasama, halos walang laman yung hotel. Walang laman yung hotel. Halos walang laman yung hotel. And, merong isang section dyan na may semi-permanent na accommodation ng puro Chinese. Alright? Puro Chinese. And then, of course, meron yung mandatory na boat tour. Try Santa Ana. Maganda yung boat tour doon. Excellent. Ang sarap. Para siyang anawangin ng Sambales. So, gumawa kayo ng boat tour, etc. etc. Tapos may local. Pero besides that, ano na lang ang pwede nilang i-offer sa'yo? Yung casino na tinatawag nila. So, pumunta ako ng casino. Pagpasok ko ng casino, pagpunta ko ng door na yun, parang sabay-sabay. Yung ulo tumingin sa akin ng gano'n, no? Parang may alien na pumasok. Ang nakikita ko, ang mga tao doon is puro security na nakabarong na lalaki.
Dahil hindi ka in-check.
Oo, and puro in-check sila. And may kita mo maraming table doon na may camera, parang ganito. And then nagdi-deal sila online. And then maraming player na nasa telepono. Kaya naglakad akong gano'n, nakala siguro nila nag-undercover ako. Napaka-blatant naman nito mag-observe. Bakit sila tumitingin sa akin nung dumadaan ako? Kasi napaka-unusual. Hindi siya yung pang-tourist na Filipino. And, ayun, dumaan ako, lumabas ako, hindi ako nagtaya, thank God. So, ganun yung process. Umalis kami and yun yung impression na nakuha ko sa Santa Ana. And, bet, that if you try to visit the POGO offices here in Manila, it's the same operation. You have online dealers like that. You have Chinese inside. You have a chat, telephone, customer service providers who are Chinese. And you see also the accommodations here, especially in MOA. You have a lot of Chinese there. They are the ones employed by that POGO. And you see also, during that time, nagkaroon na ng influx ng Chinese dito sa Philippines. They bought real estate sa MOA. Pumipili sila ng bagong building. Diyan sa Baclaran, nagsaset up sila ng buong building para ma-house yung mga tauhan nila. Nagbabayad sila ng advance, 1 year, 2 years. Hanggang ngayon, meron dito sa, narinig ko dito sa malapit na malaking mall, naglaglag ng hundreds of millions of pesos, pero nagka-COVID, hindi natuloy. Pero okay lang, ganun siya kayaman. Ganun siya kayaman. Yun yung nangyayari na operations. Whether it is right or wrong, I have no opinion. But Duterte's opinion is, it is good for the economy because it provides jobs and it supplies money into the economy because of the sales sa real estate, rentals, office spaces, etc. So far, Butch, I have more to say, but my jaw is tired. But take it away.
Question. Why is it that they need to set up a main office in the Virgin Islands? British Virgin Islands. When they can set up here, I don't think anybody is going to stop them from setting up in CESA. No?
The same reason why I would set up a company in British Virgin Islands if I am so rich. I don't want to reveal to the Filipino authorities who I am. So you don't know the owners of these POGO companies.
I see. And you don't necessarily have to disclose the owners if they are here,
right?
In at the branch office. You don't have to disclose. Ang iniisip ko kasi ganito, kung ganyan, ayaw mong malaman yung mga may-ari. Posible ba na ang mga may-ari doon sa British Virgin Islands ay Pilipino?
Posible.
Posible.
Feeling malamang ngayong habang nakaupo tayo ngayon, maraming Pilipinong sobrang yaman ang merong mga offshore accounts sa ibang bansa and companies.
Right. Kasi kung ganyan din, anong gusto sabihin, hindi, ang pwedeng nangyayari, ang Filipino company, Filipino nationals, magse-set up dito sa Caribbean magbukas sila ng branch office here. Yung branch office here, ang magpapatakbo Chinese. Meron silang deal sa Chinese kasi yung Chinese silang marunong kasi ang market niyan is China.
Right.
No? So, yung China, yung kailangan Chinese ang kausap. Kailangan Chinese ang
Right.
ang operators. Pero ang bayad, no, pumupunta dun sa British Islands Company. They don't have to be Chinese.
Right.
They can really be Filipinos in a joint venture arrangement with the Chinese.
Right. That's a possibility. Ang galing mo talagang mag-structure ng joint ventures, Butch. That's the CPA speaking here.
No, I just want because you have to answer the question of why is it that they wanted to limit the accredited lawyers to 8.
Right.
Because these 8 accredited lawyers know who the goddamn owners of that is in the Caribbean islands.
Yeah, yep, one would think so. One would think so. Because if they really wanted to encourage the industry,
Then you open up.
you open up. You open up to lawyers like us because we need business also.
Yeah.
But I got 20% recommendation fee. There. By the way, Butch, hindi natuloy yung project na yun because Duterte came and Duterte halted the licenses, sabi ng office ng CESA. But the PAGCOR came up with rules and regulations similar to the rules and regulations of CESA, allowing for offshore gambling licenses now issued by PAGCOR.
PAGCOR.
So now,
But PAGCOR didn't have to put up an office in the Caribbean.
I don't know how PAGCOR does it, but when I read the PAGCOR procedures with the procedures of the CESA, the requirements
It's
are the same. I don't know if the lawyers there would also say, I think, siguro feeling ko lang, yung PAGCOR sabi niyo, wait, you're making too much money there. I want to make money too, so I want to have my own army of lawyers too. Parang ganun siguro.
Well,
No. Already PAGCOR has the exclusive authority to license gambling operations here in the Philippines.
wala na yung CESA.
Meron pa rin CESA. Parallel sila ngayon. Of course, one, hindi siya magpapatalo sa isa.
Ano ang mas malaki?
Parang mas maraming license ngayon sa PAGCOR. But I don't know about sa number sa CESA. But I still receive inquiries from clients. Almost all of them inquire about CESA. Because apparently, mas madaling kuha sa CESA.
Kapag siguro, yung mga principals ng mga yon don't want the Philippine. Pag alam ng PAGCOR, di alam ng Philippine government. No?
Yeah, malamang. Alam nila.
Kung ang CESA, hindi malalaman ng Philippine government kasi yun ang sistema.
Right. Well, you know what, Butch, you know naman, yung mga heads ng organization na to, sila yung hari ng sarili nilang realm eh. Kahit sabihin yung merong supra-realm pa dyan na naghahari sa ating lahat. Pero kung gusto nila, sila ang hari dun sa territory na to, sa organization nila, baka sapat na sila lang ang may alam.
Pero Harold, what you're disclosing here is very, very interesting. And it's the kind of operations that the Philippines will never get to know, no? Because even if there were such operations here, they're making so much money that they can control the only way that the Filipino people are going to know about this is through the media. No?
Right.
But if the media itself is mercenary media, which we always have, or the media is owned by the oligarchs, who themselves might be the ones having a company in the Virgin Islands,
Right.
operating this in this way, you know. And that's very possible. Itong mga oligarko, basta pera, maaamoy nila kung paano gagawa. So walang magsasalita at walang lalabas na ganito. Dito sa munting Katipunan channel, at least naiintindihan natin na mayroong ganyang klaseng operasyon. At para lang wag malaman ng tao, dahil pag nalaman ng tao, itong po sinasabi ko, it does not take genius to see what it is. No? So, malalaman at malalaman. At pag may mga nagtatanong, eventually mahuhuli or eventually mabibisto. And I think the oligarchs, lahat yan mga oligarkong yan, yung mga connected to the public utilities, lahat yan, they're the ones, no, that will be able to smell this and make a lot of money on this. No? They might call it legitimate because it is a online operation at you are making the Chinese gamble what is illegal in China and making it legal here. No? So nakakapag-gamble pa rin yung mga Chinese. Remember, sa China, bawal yan except dito sa isang lugar nga sa Macau. No? At lahat pa, yung mga nasa Macau pa, under license pa yan ng mga Las Vegas companies. No? Pero by themselves, bawal talaga ang gambling. No? Dito sa atin, the more the merrier. No? Dahil ang ating gustong pagkitaan ng gobyerno ay ang sugal. No? Sayang po dahil marami pa po tayong kakayanin pagkitaan. Not necessarily gambling. At itong pinapaliwanag sa atin ni Attorney Harold Respicio is really food for thought. And I'm sure papag-isipan pa natin yan later on. Okay.
And he already had dinner at that. Diba? Food for thought. Alright, talk of the devil, Butch. Spare me one last minute. It's talking about the media. You know, I have interactions with persons from this industry. Many of them are employees. One employee was driver/bodyguard of the big head of a Pogo operation. And he went to my office and complained about no separation pay, no holiday pay, etc. So he was complaining, and he reported also some irregularities in the operations, like not paying taxes and not reporting employees to the DOLE, etc. Wrong visas, no visa. But the most striking was the other day he said, we went to this media office, XXXX, popular, and they brought luggage full of cash. And he told me, 30 million, attorney.
Wow.
Binigay namin para hindi lang siya magsalita.
Really?
About the industry. Kasi mainit ang laki ng pera ng industry.
30 million binigay sa isang media organization.
Hindi, tao!
Isang tao?
Yep! Sana gano'n na lang ako kasikat. Retire na lang ako. Magaganito na lang ako. Joke lang.
Hindi, tingnan nyo ha. Napakadali kasi ng pera. At itong mga nagmamarunong dito sa media, alam mo kung sino silang magsalita, pero lahat sila nagbebenta ng kanilang kaluluwa. No? Para ang taong bayan hindi malalaman kung anong kalokohan ang nangyayari. No? Para din hindi ko alam, pati na rin siguro ang gobyerno, no? Hindi na rin nila nalalaman. Maraming kalokohan nangyayari. Kaya ang gobyerno maraming tinatago sa tao. Itong mga negosyanteng to marami din tinatago sa gobyerno. ang nangyayari, ang kawawa yung taong bayan. We're left ignorant, no? Without knowing anything that's happening. No? Okay.
All right, Butch, one more thing.
Yes.
I might not be able to tell this anymore in the future.
Yes, please.
All right, another thing. Another employee from a big Bogo operation somewhere in the business district, he was a finance officer. So don't disgruntle your finance officers because they will download all your finances, including your cash flows, disbursements in and out, including the description to those disbursements. And he showed me. He showed me the Holy Grail, and I read the names of those who would go to heaven. General this, that, head of police that, wife of mayor this, wife of mayor that, and head of police this. I can tell you, and sabi ko sa kanya, well, wala pa akong balak magpakamatay. Ayaw ko pagsabihin. Pero hindi ko sinasabi sa inyo ngayon kung sino-sino yung mga. But, just note, the money is there. It goes everywhere. From the top, the military, local government, local police. Kaya wala kang makikita nagre-reklamo sa police. Wala silang nahuli. Kahit saan. Nandun sila. Kasi ang laki ng pera eh. Kapag involved na, I think, malaking pera, wala na talagang mapipigilan pa. Pati lahat ng kaluluwa ng tao na bibili na.
Pero mo, generals, mayors, governors pa siguro dyan, no? Lahat yan, makikita po ng finance officer, no? At meron siyang kopya. Kaya natatakot si attorney. Kasi pag nalaman niya yan, no? At alam ng tao na alam niya, no? Eh di, delikado pa buhay niya.
No, nasa Google Drive ko siya at shared yun sa lahat, pati sa messenger namin. Kaya hindi nila if they want to get rid of the file, they must get rid of me and our whole firm. Including the janitors. Nagdamay pa daw. Hindi mo makidamay.
Ayaw magpadamay.
Ako lang daw. Pero nasa laptop ko, nasa audio. 5, 4. Kung gusto niyo kunin, nasa kotse ka yung laptop ko. Nandun na yun.
Wag mo sabihin. Anyway, it was fun. Tonight we talked about marriage, and we also talked about what do you call this? A different kind of marriage. This
marriage with vice.
Unholy marriage between the gambling industry and our government and our oligarchs. Okay, it's time to read text messages.
It's reading time. You know what? I always make a point to read each and everyone's comment.
Yeah.
So, give me credit for that.
Okay.
And that is because I love you. Arok the second, hello po mga sirs. Will they still allow you to be married if both of you are drunk? So us, the two of us, and drunk and married, hey, we're just having coffee. They can still allow you to get married because there is still consent. You can still consent even if you're drunk. Glenn Buwan, paano kung bigamous marriage? Is it voidable, or a ground for annulment? Just void, girl. Or boy, ano ang remedy sa bigamous marriage without the criminal aspect? File for nullity of marriage on the basis of voidness of marriage. Please explain the process of recognition of foreign divorce decree. Wow, that's very interesting. Sa lahat ng may asawang foreigner at gusto ninyong mag-divorce, hindi naman sa rin-recommend ako. Mas madali, tell your husband or wife na foreigner na to get a divorce sa country niya or overseas, get that divorce recognized here in the country, and annulment will be as easy as that. It's not actually annulment, but hey, it has the effect of annulment. Pwede rin bang gamitin sa annulment? Yeah. Ano ang effect ng divorce sa bigamous marriage wherein the divorce was after the fact of the... ano ang effect ng divorce sa bigamous marriage wherein the divorce was after the fact of bigamous marriage? No, bigamous marriage. Well, of course, if there is first marriage, that there is second marriage, there's already bigamy. Regardless of whether the divorce came after the second marriage. Alright, Betchay! My favorite name, Betchay. You always remind me of Nilaga. Last time, our dinner here was Nilaga. And there are pechais here in the garden. Gandang gabi po watching here in Macau. Interesting topic po. Nice one. Macau is Special Administrative Region of China. Yes. Benji Castro, good eve po, Sir Butch Valdes. Racing from Santa Cruz, Ibahay, Aklan. God bless po sa lahat na nandito. Danilo Taylan. Yep. Good evening mga sir. Mark Sibulo, gandang gabi po mga sirs. Clarissa Concepcion, hi attorney, what advice can you give to young couples before they marry? Find the perfect match. Pero siguro, Butch, since ikaw naman na yung may wisdom sa ating dalawa, baka gusto mong magbigay ng advice.
What advice can you give a young couple before they get married? One thing lang, you will find out how easy it is to decide to marry. The hardest decision later on for you is your decision to stay married. Napakadali pong mag-decide na mag-asawa dahil nagmamahalan kayo. At later on, pag nag-aaway na kayo, napakahirap po mag-decide na manatili kayong kasal. Just put that in mind. Now, when this is what it means when it says for better or for worse. It really will get worse.
All right. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Reynaldo Badua, Isabella Pride, Attorney Respishow. Hey, Manong, Tagalog ka. Lourdes Cock, you're back, Lourdes. Love it. Hello and good evening, Professor Butch and Mr. Harold. Ang masasabi ko lang sa Mr. Ko, married together for 24 years. I live together, fight together, but not violence from Accra, West Africa. What do you mean fight together? Close to each other, not fight through text? Mga sirs, ang masasabi ko lang sa bakunahan sa atin ay parang no choice ata na ang bawat to at isa na yan sa paglabag ng karapatan ang bawat ayaw magpaturo. Dapat sana huwag pilitin ang ayaw.
Tama.
Alright. Jan Cyril Onato, good evening sa inyo mga sirs. Tama kayo, kaya pala yung ibang mga tsekwa, aka Chinese, business-minded dahil sa kanilang illegal na transaction, kaya ng droga, sugalan, smuggling at iba pa para magkapera sila. Yep, that may be true in one aspect. But historically, the Chinese among the Asians are the most enterprising ethnic group. See, some scholar carried out a survey of the Chinese outside of mainland China. And he found that in many countries, including the Philippines, the Chinese are the most successful. So include Malaysia there, maybe include Thailand, but somehow it's in their culture to make money. And they are industrious, but they're also gamblers. Mga sirs, kung buhay lang sana ang death penalty dito sa ating bansa, ang dapat sa mga Tsekwa na gumagawa ng kalokohan sa kanilang monkey business, kasuhan, ikulong at hatulan ng kamatayan. The same is true with all races, ethnic groups, not just the Chinese, but maybe Filipinos as well. You know what? I may sound racist here, but there are Africans here in the Philippines undertaking active scamming activities. You know, foreigners call me asking for some help for some business transaction. A Filipino is selling gold, kilograms of gold, or selling computer parts, etc. And the Filipino counterpart is asking for an amount of money. Some of the foreigners already had given money. And so they are asking for a lawyer's help so they can pursue the business further. Because the Filipino counterpart hasn't delivered yet. And so, okay, let me speak with the Filipino supplier here. So I spoke with the Filipino supplier. Oh my gosh. He had the thickest Nigerian accent. Oh, what was your name? What was your name?
Hindi pala Filipino.
Jonas Ramos. What? That's a Filipino last name. Are you Filipino? Yes, I am. I don't know. I can imitate Nigerian accent, but you can imagine Nigerian accents. I'm Filipino. That's a Filipino. Is it Filipino? All right, it's Filipino accent. And then, sadly, meron silang associate na Filipino who would take the place for them kapag medyo mainit-init na sila, nasa-ses niya na parang nahuhuli siya. May Filipino associate din sila. So maraming mga scam na ganyan. Hindi lang Chinese, hindi lang Africans certainly. Meron ding Filipino, madami ding Filipino, I tell you. I can attest to that.
So,
mga sirs, kung buhay lang sa... Okay. Fatima Uzi. Ganyan po ang mga ginagawa ng mga politiko natin dito, especially mga senators at mga oligarchy. Lahat ng nakaw nila sa taong bayan dinadala sa labas ng Pilipinas. Yeah, many wealthy people do that. I would do that maybe in the future. Just so, not to evade taxes, not to evade scrutiny, but because I'm a private person. I don't want others to look into my funds. But that may just remain a dream for forever because I might not get there. Arnolfo Respishow. Grand Cayman ang taguan na nakaw ng pera ng mga politicians. Alright. Koy Maxis Cuerdo. Sir Harold, your family comes from Santiago, Isabela, if not mistaken. Reyna Mercedes, Santiago City is 1 hour from Reyna Mercedes. Melchor Ermino, Sir Attorney Harold, wala po ba kayo plano mag-petition protest tungkol dito sa vaccine lockdown at protocol? Epikto po ito, pasasara ng mga negosyo, kasama po kayo sa mawawalan ng trabaho. Lahat na abogado. What's your plan, Butch? Do you have plans?
Yeah, we're fighting this mandatory thing about vaccines.
All right.
And hopefully the people will get together and pressure this government not to continue with their plan to make it mandatory.
Shout out, by the way, to my closest friend, girl. Thanks for the shirt. I like it. Polka dot. Bright blue. Shining, shimmering. I look good on video, I think. Mr. EXID, ano po masasabi ninyo kapag ang isang tao ay ayaw magpaturok ng bakuna pero it is being forced to everyone? Ano po kaya mabuting ikatwiran para di mapilit ang isang ayaw magpabakuna? Sigaw ka ng pulis! Dahil bawal kang i-compel ng kahit na sino. Coercion yon. Pipilitin kang magsalita, pinipigilan yung paggalaw mo, pipilitan kang pumunta dito, pumunta dyan, o ikulong dyan. Krimen yun. Bawal yun gawin sa kahit na sino. Pero, wag ka naman magpauto at pumayag tapos sasabihin mo sa susunod na pinilit ka. Iba yung matalinong napilit at iba yung tangang na-persuade. Tapos nadala lang pala. Tapos magreklamo ka sa uli. Alright? Iba yun. Regalado Garcia, ang last option pag ayaw mong magpaturok siguro ay magtago ka sa bundok na pwede kang mabuhay. May tubig at pagkain o pwede. Well, lahat ng bundok ay may tubig. Merong sapa. Batis. May batis yan. At pwede kang mabuhay actually. Nagpunta ka na ba sa bundok? John Cyril Onato, Sir Bush at Attorney Harold, ask ko lang po, ano po ang pwedeng ikaso sa isang barangay officials o government officials na pinipilit ka nila magpaturok sa vaccine kahit alam nila na ayaw mo sa vaccine? You must distinguish between persuasion and coercion. Persuasion means, kino-convince ka nila, magpabakuna ka na, punta ka na dito, sa TV, halina kayo dito. Sumisigaw sila sa bahay ninyo, halina kayo, papabakuna kayo. Pilit ba yun? Hindi, persuasion lang. Ang pilit is, kung ikagrab ka at dadalhin ka. Alright? Coercion yun, or kidnapping pa siguro, or illegal detention, or ikukulong ka, hahawakan ka ng ganon. Yun ang bawal. So, kapag pinapersuade ka lang,
pero
wag mo
kung
na lang
yung,
pansinin.
yung persuasion nila, sasabihin, magpabakuna na kayo ngayon, kung hindi kayo makakalabas.
Ano lang yon? Threat yun. Parang threat yun. Parang threat. Hindi ko alam kung pwede mong, kung legal exercise lang tayo, baka crime yun kasi nag-threaten ka ng illegal Tapos conditional pa. Pwede grave threats yun. Kasi hindi ka makakalabas kasi ayaw mo siyang palabasin. Illegal detention yun. Kung black and white lang tayo sa exams, yun ang isasagot ko. Pero sa totoong buhay, baka medyo pabayaan mo na lang siguro. Huwag mo na lang pansinin. Hintayin mo na lang na ikulong ka talaga. Glenn Buwan, please take note that it is only the NBI, Bureau of Immigration, and CIDG that are authorized to investigate any and all complaints and illegal activities concerning POGOs. fundamentally, the right to investigate or the power to investigate is vested on the executive. NBI, BI, and CIDG are under the executive. You can investigate over yourself, and you will be called private investigator. Would that be all, Butch?
Yes.
What can you say to summarize what we've talked about tonight?
Well, it was a mouthful that we had. We learned a lot. I'm sure many of our listeners, marami pang ibang mga questions dyan na hindi pa nila naihahabol, no? Pero yung unang topic natin really is of interest to people in whatever stage of life they're in. Yung mga iba,
nakakasense na ako sa iyo.
yung mga iba nag-iisip mag-asawa.
Oh.
Kailangan alam nila yan. Yung mga iba may asawa na, no? Pero baka nag-iisip na maghiwalay.
Alright.
So, nasa kanila yan, no? Kasi halos maraming ganyan eh. Yung nga iba, nag-asawa na o naghiwalay na, pero hindi nila alam kung anong nature ng kanilang paghiwalay.
Right.
No? At kapag sa mga iba, when you said, for example, yung register, you have to go to the registry and register that both of you are gonna get married, no? Before you go to the church, and to many people, that certificate of marriage is already in.
Right.
That validates your marriage.
Right.
I never realized that was the case.
Yeah.
No? Because when we were getting a license for marriage, because they have to get, we couldn't get it from the church, no? But neither was it there in the munisipyo. Wala, no? So, that was apparently what had happened. You got married in the church, no? But they did not send the records to the municipio or something like that, no?
Right.
To get it registered there.
Yeah.
At marami sigurong ganyan.
Marami. And mas madali, ang tandaan ninyo, mas madaling ground yun. Gusto nyo makatipid ng oras.
Hanapin nyo mabuti yung isyong ganyan.
Kung
No?
gusto nyo malaman kaagad na kung meron kayong marriage license, tawagan nyo na yung kinuhanan ninyo ng marriage license. Or yung Philippine Consulate kung sa ibang bansa. Alright, thank you so much, Butch.
Okay.
Thank you so much
Maraming
for giving me
salamat,
this platform.
Yeah.
I enjoyed tonight tremendously.
Yeah.
See you again next week, 8 p.m. Friday still.
Kung meron kayong ibang mga itatanong, huwag niyo pong kalilimutan, no? Pwede niyong ipadala dito o kaya sasagutin niya kung meron kayong mga special cases.
Right.
Huwag lang masyadong complicated na kinakailangan maging kliyente na niya kayo. Pero bahala na siya doon. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Butch. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mom, hello. Good evening.